Let's look at relocating a PDB in 12.2 using RMAN. First I will connect to the CDB and verify my pluggable database. So my pluggable database new PDB is con ID 4. I check the data files. And these are all the data files. U03 orator new PDB. Remember, the file IDs are across the whole database instance, across the CDB. So these 5 files belong to this new PDB, but numbers 1 to 15 belong to some other PDBs. Numbers 21 onwards belong to some other PDBs. The ones we are concerned with are only 16 to 20 here. They're all in U03 orator new PDB. I want to relocate them to U04. So I already have a file system created. And I have permissions and nothing in this file system. So let me first close this database because I want to do an offline copy. When I am connected to the CDB, I issue a close command. If I were connected to the PDB explicitly, I would issue a shutdown command. But here from the CDB, I just issue a close command. Then I go into RMAN. And I use the format clause to specify the new location of the data files, and %u for Oracle to automatically generate the file names. These files were file ID 16 to 20, remember that. So we're going to use those file IDs later. If I had configured multiple channels, of course, then I could have backed up all the files in parallel. Maybe 4 channels would have run 4 file backups in parallel. But this is a small VM with one single disk. I'm not going to run multiple channels in parallel. But if you have a larger machine, more CPUs, more disks, you could open multiple channels and run the backup as copy with multiple channels in parallel. So you see note file numbers 17, 16, 18, 19 and 20. Oracle does not always back up in the same file ID sequence. It just ensures that all those files are backed up, but not necessarily in the number sequence. So 17 happened to get backed up before 16. I can do a list copy. So it shows me the new location of U0 of the file ID 16 is in U04. Okay, so here also you could have seen input for file 16 was U03, output for file 16 was U04, and it has regenerated the file names with a unique identifier. While file number is part of the file name, tablespace name is part of the file name, and the DB ID is part of the file name. So I can now issue a Of course, I could have scripted all this instead of running them sequentially one by one. I could have put all these commands into a script, backup as copy, and switch data files 16 to 17, or I could do a okay. So here you can see that if I do a switch pluggable database to copy, it switches all the data files. But since I had switched data file 16, it switched file 16 from U04 to U03 back. So I just issue another switch data file 16 to copy again. Okay, so now 16 is also in U04. So I could have issued switch data file individually for each of the data files, or I could have switched the whole pluggable database with one single command. If I happen to switch a data file individually and then I want to switch it back again from U03 to U04, then from U03 back to U04 again. So each time I do a switch data file to copy, it goes from one location to another location. The switch data file copy does not make a copy of the file. It verifies that there is a copy that has already been created and just changes the pointer in the control file. I could just verify if I need to do a recovery. Okay, so it just does a verify. So if any recovery was required, it would have done the recovery, finished recovery, and then I can open the pluggable database either from RMAN or, as I want to do properly, from SQL Plus. Now because I did an RMAN backup as copy, the files are still in the old location. I did not relocate the files physically. I just made copies of the files. So I can still see con ID 4 is new PDB. $$ data file is a listing across the whole database, across the whole CDB, including all the PDBs. So 16 to 20 belong to this PDB, but other data files belong to other PDBs. Now I can see 16 to 20 have all got relocated to U04 or data. But if I had a temp file, then I have to be careful about the temp file. The temp file location is still the U03 because RMAN backup as copy will never copy a temp file. So I would have to create a new temp file in the new location. Now remember, I am connected explicitly to the PDB. So if I query from $$ data file, I want to see the whole instance. If I query from DB data files, I will see only local data files, only local to this PDB. So that's it. 16 to 20 are the file IDs for this PDB, and DBA data files, if I query for all files in DBA data files without a where clause, it still shows me only files local to this PDB. And all the files have now got relocated from U03 to U04. This was the original location, and I had queried from the CDB itself, so I used $$ data file and I filtered by con ID for that one PDB. Then I verified that I had the file system created. I closed my PDB. I ran backup as copy for the pluggable database and used the %u for Oracle to generate the file names. The file names generated included the DB ID, the table space name, the file ID, and something string to make it unique. Once I had done the backup as copy, I could either switch pluggable database to copy or switch data file individually to copy. So switch pluggable database to copy is a faster way. particularly when you have many files to switch to the new locations. They all got switched. Just the catch here is if I had already switched data file 16 from U03 to U04, the switch pluggable database switched 16 back to U03. So I did a manual switch of 16 back to U04. So this step would not have been necessary if I had not done this step. This alone should have sufficed, switch pluggable database to copy. But I just wanted to demonstrate to you both the options. You can switch data file individually, or you can switch the whole pluggable database in one shot. Then I verified the locations of the data files again from the container, from the CDB, sorry. My temp file does not get relocated by rman, so I connected it explicitly to the PDB. I verified that the temp file was still in the old location. I added a new temp file, dropped the old temp file, and I verified DBA data files in my PDB shows me all the files of this PDB being in U04 only. So that's how you can do an offline relocation of a PDB in 12C.